In my coaching program, one of the first things I do is break down the sales and marketing funnel. And at the very bottom of the funnel, past even conversion, is the loyalty phase. Now, it's not a phase that's on everyone's sales and marketing funnel, but it's important to have because if you can be thinking about customer loyalty from the start, then you'll be more likely to implement processes or programs that will encourage a meaningful connection that will result in repeat and referral business. That's a good thing. Enter my guest today, Paula Thomas. She's a loyalty marketing expert with over 20 years of experience delivering tangible results for some of the world's top brands. And she's a fellow podcaster like me, host creator of her podcast. It's called Let's Talk Loyalty. On her show, she interviews some of the world's top industry professionals, from leading practitioners for programs like the AAA Advantage program to leading academics and consultants who love the power that a loyalty program marketing approach brings to business. In today's conversation, we're going to break down and define loyalty marketing, why a small business should invest in a loyalty program, a couple of takeaways from big business loyalty programs that you can copy with pride, i.e., borrow or steal, and discuss 3 simple, actionable things that a creative business owner can do to improve loyalty. So, without further ado, let's get pedaling.
You're listening to Tripod, a podcast produced by Tricycle Creative to help safely navigate creative business owners through the worlds of digital marketing, strategic content creation, and business growth. Host Ross Erosion is a marketing consultant, content creator, and entrepreneur who brings you helpful tips, social media updates, inspiring interviews, and his own unique perspective on how to tell your story and grow your business. So if you're interested in being a better marketer, business owner, or creator, sit back, relax, and let's get pedaling.
Paula, I'm curious, is there like a product or a service or even a brand that like you find yourself referring or recommending a lot?
Well, I guess with my professional hat on, Ross, I'm often asked what's my favorite loyalty program. And would you believe it's not one that I can even become a member of? But I've been watching it from afar, I'm telling you now, for years. It's incredible, Ross.
What a program. I mean, so good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? What I really like is it's filled with integrity. So it's a company in South Africa which started like 25 years ago with a health insurance product. But what they realized very simply was, it can be quite expensive as people get older, especially if they're not fit or taking care of themselves. So they realized that they had a vested interest in helping people to become healthier. So they started to go and organize like discounts for the gym, discounts in the supermarket for healthy food, and a whole range of ways to, first of all, measure how healthy somebody is, monitor it, and then reward them for being healthier. And it's just a really beautiful model, I think, where, everybody's winning. I think in business, like I'm sure all of your listeners, it can be super hard to compete. But I think if you genuinely have your customers' interests at heart and they feel that, then absolutely it's an extraordinary feeling. So it's called Vitality, is the loyalty program, if anybody wants to Google it. The company is called Discovery. They've been written about certainly in Harvard Business Review. Very well respected company. I know they're in, I think, 10 or 12 countries now. Certainly in the UK. But yeah, when I recommend something as, just an extraordinary example, that's definitely my favorite.
It's a preemptive approach, it sounds like, to health, which is sadly very rare. Particularly for us in the States, it's all about, it seems to be so much more weighted on the side of less about preventative and kind of preemptive and more about like, all right, what pharmaceuticals can we throw at you? You know, like it's just so much. I love that. That sounds super awesome. I feel like mine are oftentimes like super, like, I don't know, embarrassing or just like normal. Mine are like super boring. I'm trying to think Like so I had a back issue I had a lower back issue, part maybe hereditary, part I was doing mixed martial arts at the time, and I was also playing golf. So there was a lot of twisting going on in my life at that point, and I may have just thrown something off. And I was in bad shape, and started Googling just when you're in. I've never been in that much pain in my life, and you're looking just kind of for anything short of shaman up on the mountain. Not even short of that, actually. Exactly. And there's this thing I got. I'm holding it up on video, so those of you who can't see it, but it's called the Plexus Wheel by Chirp.
Wow. Okay.
And this is a non-affiliated sponsor, actually. I didn't even think this through, but this thing, you roll on it. And it's got like a little curve here for your spine, and you roll on it on the floor. I'm going to tell you, man, this thing was awesome. It was really great. I want to say it was like $30-$40, and they have a whole set of them, but it was a life changer for me. It really helped a lot. So it wasn't the only thing. It didn't exclusively, but it supplementary helped for sure.
But you know what I love, Ross, though, is the power of word of mouth marketing. Like, we're proving it right here. Products that work and products that we believe in. Like, we don't just talk, with each other as friends and family. We talk about it on podcasts. So there we go. That sounds like an incredible thing. If I had a bad back, I'd be straight on to buy that right now.
And that's the thing. If people have a bad back, I'm like, oh, you should check this thing. Like,
totally.
You're very. So on that note, I think we've kind of just shown, right? We've shown exactly what it is, but define loyalty marketing for our listeners.
And actually, Ross, it's a great question, because I always like to start with just the loyalty part. Like, let's just define what is loyalty. And if you look up the dictionary, it's super simple. Loyalty is a strong feeling of support or allegiance. And again, we're all in business. Everybody listening to this podcast is in business. So regardless of who your stakeholders are, and I literally mean we want loyal employees, we want investors who are loyal, and of course, we absolutely want loyal customers. So I really like the idea of loyalty as a number of different things, and loyalty marketing by extension, for me, is first of all a mindset. So there is a way that we treat each other that I really think comes through in running a business. And I've just talked about vitality. And then there's, I suppose, the classic definition of loyalty marketing to answer your question, which is all of the mechanics. So is it points? Is it stamps? Is it prizes? There's lots of different models that are classified as loyalty marketing initiatives. But actually, I really like to think of it, certainly from my podcast, at a very kind of high level in terms of that feeling of support and allegiance.
I'm kind of thinking about this, like, is this a chicken or the egg situation? Like, what comes first, a loyalty program or loyal customers? And is there a right answer there?
Well, you know what I think, Ross? And increasingly the research is absolutely validating this. There's lots coming out now saying, first of all, the purpose of a loyalty program is for a company to demonstrate loyalty to its customers. Because it's actually totally flipped. I think we've all kind of gotten into this mindset of driving behavior change and driving, commercial business changes. But actually, that only happens when you step forward, you show up, and you go, you know what can I do to take care of you, Ross, as my customer?
That kind of just like blew my mind just for a second there. If you're listening, maybe that also blew your mind, because as a business owner, you spend so many hours of the day and you're just thinking about, how do I move the needle for my business? And I think maybe this is a great example of flipping the script and to say, how do I move the needle for my customers?
Yes, that's the right question.
If you move the needle for your customers, you will inevitably move the needle for your business.
You totally will. You totally got it. The only thing I would add to that, Ross, is, ideally you would choose the customers that you are demonstrating your loyalty to. So I think we have finite time, we have finite resources. So I'm not here to say that you can call every single customer that you have, but you should know who the ones are that are driving your business. And those are the ones that you should absolutely be saying, how can I be more loyal to them?
In your experience, what are some examples or ways that people have selected those audiences? I mean, again, thinking about how I can help my customer, it can't purely just be about, oh, this one is most likely to repurchase or continue to purchase, but I'm sure that's a factor.
It totally is. I mean, I think first and foremost, like, let's not forget the simplicity of like the Pareto principle. We learned it in school. We learned it in marketing college. So 80% of your revenue will come from 20% of your customers. So any company owner should know who are this 20% of customers, whether it means they sit in the call center once a week to check in and listen to calls, or they ask their sales team, depends what kind of business you're in. And the identification of those will totally be available data, purely from transactional data. So let's start there. You know, they've already been showing up, they're shopping with you, there's stuff they like, there's stuff they're probably frustrated about, but still you're doing good stuff for them. So let's take care of them even better, because they definitely have the propensity. And a big topic that we talk about in the loyalty world now as well is share of wallet. So it's one thing to say, okay, great, Ross comes in to me for coffee every day, maybe on his way to the office in the morning, if you do that. But where does Ross go to buy his lunch? So, you know, to understand, okay, this customer is spending in my category, how can I understand what they're spending and make sure that I get, you know, let's aim for 100%. I'm not going to say that's always possible, but actually let's understand their whole spend and see what we can go after.
I think that also speaks to, you know, it's easier to keep the customer. Sure. Again, one of the classic foundational aspects of marketing and sales. It's easier to keep a customer than to acquire a new one. And I think by extension, that also does extend into, it could be easier to have that customer open their wallet a little bit more than to get someone completely cold. Now, I think these are all really great reasons. Hopefully, if you're listening, you're getting it, the value. Yeah. But if they're not getting it, why should a small business, right? We all think about, maybe we think about loyalty programs, like, oh, that's a big business type thing. Why should a small business invest in a loyalty program or strategy?
It's an absolutely great question, Ross. And to me, every company should invest in a loyalty strategy. And that loyalty strategy, you know, to the earlier point of the definition of the feeling, mightn't be about a structured loyalty program, because, you know, loyalty programs have a role to play in specific type of industries. But it might be maybe, let's say, utilities, you know, where your phone company, my phone company, feel pretty much the same. The brand is different, you know, the package is different, but ultimately you're buying something that feels like a commodity. That's a great example of where a loyalty program gives a unique selling point to one company that mightn't to another. But if I'm working in B2B, for example, my loyalty strategy might be, you know what, I'm just going to go and take my top customers out for lunch every single week, a different group of my top customers, and I'm going to sit with them and I'm going to let them get to know each other. And that's my loyalty strategy. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you're a small business or a big business. The fundamental important principle is to have the mindset of retention. And you've already made the point, Ross, and we all know it, but it's worth remembering and reminding ourselves. I think the number is it costs 5 times as much to get a new customer as it does to retain an existing one. And we've all been in the position of, oh my God, where am I going to find new customers? Well, hang on a second. If I kept all the customers I had last year, then maybe actually I'd be totally fine. You know, like I remember when I got into loyalty marketing, Ross, it was in a telecommunications company. And, you know, there's very high churn rates, and that is the issue. And actually, it shocked me because when I thought about it, we had a 33% churn rate every year. And that was the nature, certainly in the Irish market, which means in 3 years, you're out of business if you're not keeping those customers. Yeah. So, you know, I just think we have to take the long-term approach of understanding how much these customers can be valuable to us if we take care of them properly. So I fundamentally believe small business, big business, it doesn't matter. You need customers. It's the lifeblood.
I came from the satellite radio subscription model in the U.S. Great. And I guess technically speaking, North America. Sure. Similarly, we dealt with churn. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, churn is it's very simplified. It's people who let's just say in the terms of radio, turn the radio off. They turn Sirius XM off and they never come back, right? That's churn. They leave your business. That's churn, if you've never heard that term before. And I was not on the customer support or sales side. I was on the marketing side, but we obviously interacted a lot with those teams. And oftentimes, and we were on the social side, so we got a lot of customer support tweets and we saw those kinds of things. And, people would, kind of rake us over the coals or made it was the worst kept secret in media that if you called and you said you were going to cancel, that we would offer you a discount. Right. But the reason is because at enough scale, we got to the point, I don't know, I've been, 5-6 years removed, maybe more actually, from that world. But like at scale, 1 million people paying $3 a month instead of paying $0 a month. That is a significant line item on the P&L. Right. So, and they were always in the mode of acquiring new subscribers, but what's called win back, right? And retention. Yeah. So win back is for people who have already left, and retention is keeping those. They were always firing at, full gear too, because it's like, listen, if we can keep these people at a certain clip, that's valuable.
It's still cheaper. But it's interesting, Ross, because if, for example, in the UK, which is a very sophisticated market, as you probably know from a marketing perspective, that kind of behavior, there is potentially a class action lawsuit coming to prevent that.
Interesting.
Because it's been labeled now as the loyalty penalty, because essentially they're saying, look, loyal customers are being ripped off. They're being taken advantage of. Their complacency.
Oh, interesting.
The whole thing is coming full circle. So you're absolutely right. We've educated customers to say, you know what, call us, kick our ass, and we'll roll over. It's not nice. Yeah. So it hasn't happened yet, but it's, as I said, it's building momentum. All the media is talking about it, and I believe in it. So I would say that some of the braver brands, and for example, on my podcast, I interviewed like Sky TV, super famous. They show all the Premiership football. They made a business decision a number of years ago. Okay, we cannot afford anymore to penalize our loyal customers. We need to stop that. We need to stop. Yeah, absolutely. So let's start, playing for the long haul, looking after our customers, thanking them, and putting that budget into retaining, again, particularly the most valuable ones. So they've got a whole loyalty program built around it. It's gorgeous, and customers feel it. It's amazing.
I love it. I think, again, it gets back to how can we spend the energy and the resources to ensure or to minimize customers getting to the point where they want to cancel. And I think that's a great kind of like transition or of the mindset and of the money. Now, we've talked about these big corporate entities, if you will, right? But in your experience, what takeaways from big business or maybe even small business, but loyalty programs, with your exposure to, I'm sure, hundreds, if not thousands of loyalty programs, can the creative business owner kind of like copy with pride or take and like infuse to them? I just want to say first, I love the one about taking a certain segment of your customers out to lunch with some regularity. First and foremost, I love that one. So that might be one you already had, but I just think it's so simple. It's now everything is complicated with COVID.
Yes, of course.
But it is. Let's put the asterisk at the end of it and understand that it does have some challenge.
Of course.
But it's becoming more and more plausible. You could even still do that virtually. Yes. You could do a virtual meetup and you could buy them lunch.
Exactly.
Maybe not the same, but you could do that. So
exactly.
What other things could the creative business owner kind of copy with pride?
Absolutely.
Or
we love that phrase, copy with pride. It's certainly an industry one, and it really is, because again, I think we all feel a little guilty if we're like just, again, we don't want to be seen to be kind of too cheap on it, but actually there's no such thing as a new idea, let's be honest. But actually, just to finish on that point about the whole idea about, treating people to a meal, for example, I attended an online loyalty conference recently that was on in Australia, and they did send lunch, and I was at another conference where they said, 100% wine. So I think, there's a lot of really nice, nice ideas there that everyone's going to be super grateful. And when it comes to loyalty, that they don't forget for sure. So to answer your question, Ross, one, I really do think that the big companies, let's say the established loyalty programs do very well, is they do capture data. And it can sound complicated, but what I would say is for any business, you can capture data, but I would definitely advise only to capture it if you're planning to use it. So I've often talked about this. For example, if you're going to ask somebody their date of birth, I know that's very useful information for your marketing team. So we might want to know, is Ross, what age and profile.
Super young is the answer. Definitely looks super
He's a child.
young. Very, the voice will throw you
there
off.
You
but
go.
yeah, definitely not rapidly approaching 40 or anything like that. Definitely.
20 something I'm going with.
Very active on TikTok and Snapchat. It probably comes as no surprise to you that Instagram is the favorite social media platform among creative business owners. Instagram also continues to find new and interesting ways for small businesses to generate revenue, promote their products, their service, their expertise. But Instagram does have a major limitation: external links. They won't work in your captions, and you can only use them in stories if you have a large follower count. Sure, they give you link in bio, but that's just one link. Problem solved with Solo.to. Solo.to is one bio link for everything. When you create a Solo.to account, you can showcase tons of links for your business. And if you're a creator like me, you can even embed music, videos, and podcasts right there on Instagram from your favorite platforms. Want to see Solo.to in action? Head on over to Tricycle Creative's Instagram account @HelloTricycle and click the link in our bio. Solo.to offers a free plan to get you started, and you can upgrade for as little as $1 a month. Use the referral link in this episode's description and in the show notes, and you can save 10% off any upgrade package within 48 hours of signing up. Solo.to. It's one bio link for everything.
But tell me, on your birthday, Ross, what happens? Does anyone notice? And I mean in your professional world, because clearly I'm hoping, you have a lovely family that are, taking care of you on your birthday. But professionally, I'm always very amused to go, is anybody going to actually use that date of birth data that I gave them to even just say, Paula, you know what? Happy birthday. Here's a coffee. Here's a cake, which somebody did this year. I was super impressed here in Dubai that I did get a coffee and a cake from a lovely coalition loyalty program. So I really think there are super easy things that you can do. The other one is just saying thank you. And again, we can all do that. Email seriously is not a difficult tool to manage or master. And how often do we send out offers or coupons or commercial communications? Well, look, let's not just send something commercial for once. Let's just say, you know what, Ross, it's Christmas. We just want to say you've been an extraordinary customer. We've really noticed you're one of our best, one of our favorites. So thank you. We're just here to say that. So I feel like this is going to date me a little bit, but I do think that it still can be from a impression standpoint, that it has that tangible. So sending even a postcard. Oh, lovely.
I know some of you are going to be out there and be like, oh my God, sending of how old is this guy? But I just got to say, as a digital marketer, I'm a digital marketer. I get 1,000 impressions of stuff a day, thousands a day. The difference of sending something tangible, even let's just say if it gets you some arbitrary 2 points, right, of attention, it's still maybe more than the 1 point, right, of just sending an email, maybe sending an email and a card, right? That you can compound them, if you will. You can compounded interest, layer it. Yeah. And I think that's very valuable. And I think it's something that a lot of people do in my industry, but I think just people I work with are very quick to also throw away. It's no, there's still value in that analog stuff.
There absolutely is, Ross, and I think we've all been a little bit overwhelmed now with digital. So you're absolutely right. The power of posted communication has really becoming a huge interest and massive appetite from customers, because as long as it's welcome, clearly we don't want any more bills through the post. So we don't just want post, but if somebody's addressing something to Ross and it's something nice inside, something, just super simple, absolutely, that's of value. But you've also reminded me of another food example, just because we were talking about meals. This goes back, and I won't say because I'll definitely age myself, but I remember my first marketing job. So it was a B2B situation, but a brilliant agency that was targeting my company for business. I remember they called me a few times and said, "Are you in the office on Friday?" And I was like, why are they just like being super weird about this? And you know what? Something was weird and I could feel it.
Yeah.
But you know what? On the Friday, a hot breakfast showed up on my desk with a proposal. And I have never forgotten that experience. And yes, I gave them my business. A hot breakfast with a proposal?
Where were you? Where were you at this time? Were you in the UK?
In Ireland.
Or in Ireland? Oh, I was gonna say, was it a full English,
it was a
or
full
what
Irish.
did it have or full Irish?
It's
okay,
important.
Okay.
Very patriotic. I
love that. I'm very food motivated in life and otherwise. And I think it's something sometimes you got to be a little careful of. I do send I send many of my clients cookies here or there. There's a hot cookie delivery service
lovely.
in Texas. But when you're doing food stuff, you do maybe have to do a little extra due diligence because of food allergies and whatnot.
Yes.
Like the last thing you want to do is deliver peanut butter to an office full of people who have allergies. Then they will not enjoy that so much.
And again, I've been on the end of doing it at scale with the consumer loyalty program and sending chocolate out. And who doesn't love chocolate? Well, there is always one. So definitely be careful.
Yeah. I think that, you don't, when you're doing this, or if you want to do one for your company, maybe even just think about ways that you have or would like to be recognized yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's something to like attracts like.
Exactly.
Particularly with small business. Right?
And another good example, Ross, you asked earlier about what the big companies are doing. Something I've seen recently, which I love, is what we would just call sharing is caring, which, I think comes from some children's program. But for example, if you do have a digital, connection with your customer, like an app or whatever, you can send them something that maybe they can't even use themselves, but they have to share it with somebody. So let's say it is the cup of coffee and it is one for Paula, but actually the other one must be gifted. So they have to forward it on. So by virtue of that, then obviously it's like a refer a friend, but with an added instant bonus. And it's just super generous. So who doesn't love to have something that they can go, oh, you know what? I got this free coffee this week. Here, you have it. It's just a really nice idea. Very easy to do.
With their friend, or even something that maybe is even a little bit higher with their spouse or something like that. This came from, because I guess, again, going back to the cookies example, that usually will feed the house, like I had one client, I sent it to him and she had her kids send me a video, just saying thank you to
Beautiful.
me. They mispronounced my last name and my company name, but it was okay.
Yeah.
The sentiment was 100% there. I'm not working with them, so I'll give them a pass. My clients are not any 5 to 10-year-olds.
Exactly.
So I was okay with them not having the exact amount of brand awareness. I was totally fine with that. So what are 3 simple, actionable things that a creative business owner can do to improve loyalty? Maybe that's a program, but maybe there are other things. what are some things they can do?
Well, I think there are absolutely loads of ideas, Ross. So no shortage of that for sure. I think one thing that I love is the idea of maybe creating a community. And I think this is something I've seen, actually again from a big company like IKEA. So IKEA have, so many devoted customers. And these customers are totally loving their, furniture and whatever, and they need design ideas and they need a massive amount of inspiration. And of course, IKEA creates content, but actually people who go, the customers of IKEA probably have much more inspiration. So they've created a way, which obviously anybody can do. Create a Facebook group, for example, especially if you're in like a fitness business or anything where there's a common interest. Let's get people talking to each other. I think that's something that's definitely undervalued. And I think it's something that actually COVID has definitely reminded us that we all value our communities. And we want to connect with people like us. You used the term earlier as well. Who are the other people like me? And actually, as podcasters, it's super exciting for me to talk to you as a human being who podcasts, regardless of whether, this show ever, gets any, whatever, audience. We connect because we understand.
No audience. I talk to myself. This is just for my own accord.
You know what? But I already like you. You're a podcaster. You're showing up like me. You're doing the work. So my favorite Facebook communities are podcasters. So I really think that that's a way that there's, again, loyalty created between those people, and I trust them and all of that. So again, loyalty.
I think the thing with the IKEA too, and this is kind of not unique to them, but may not apply to all, and that is even like that IKEA hack. Like the whole IKEA hack community, if you will. And I gotta believe that IKEA kind of puts its arms around that too, a little bit.
They now do. Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think they may have been tempted to keep it at arm's length, but at the end of the day, whether if I want to buy a Lark Speep Borp bookcase and I want to make it into I don't know, a dog bed, at the end of the day, why should IKEA care? And if anything, to your kind of earlier point about data collection, IKEA probably now has almost more information of use from the hack community than from the norms. Exactly. Because the hack community are almost like super users.
Super creative. Totally geeking out. And yes, and you're right, IKEA is absolutely wrapping their arms around that community now. So definitely something, again, no matter what business you're in, you have a community, they have something in common. Can you find it? Can you connect them to each other? So that's one. My second and third, Ross, are actually going to be quite similar because they're both around the idea of improving your communications. For me, first of all, the best marketing I have ever done for me is to launch a podcast. So I'm a firm believer in the power of the human voice to earn trust. I now have a global brand profile. I have interviewed some of the top loyalty marketeers in the world. I'm hosting loyalty conferences, and I don't need to. You know exactly what it's like. So audio as a strategy, and podcast is only one form of audio marketing. Clearly, there's all the Alexas and the voice assistants, and we could have a whole separate podcast discussion about that.
Don't worry, if either of us have one of those devices, it's already recording this conversation. So we should. It's already recorded, which is good news.
Yeah, and voice search, for example. But genuinely, if in 5 years' time, Ross, nobody's going to be typing in Google. Genuinely, you're going to ask for what you want, and the voice assistants will be sophisticated enough to actually respond intelligently and give us the right answers. And they're not there yet. But the final one is definitely video. I'm also a huge fan, and as somebody who's done so much YouTube, I don't need to tell you. But for me, when I think about my behavior as a human being, when I think about the messaging platforms I use, so whether it's WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, I normally use text, for day to day. But when it's a special occasion, either if there's potential for confusion or tension, or if there's a special occasion, so I guess both positive and negative, I will record a video. And especially if it's positive, if it's happy birthday, Ross, then absolutely, I'm the one singing happy birthday and sending it on WhatsApp. A little bit embarrassed, but also it's super funny because they know they only get that on their birthday. So again, if you want to build loyalty, show up, be real, be human, care, and do it in lots of ways that people can read it and enjoy it and visualize it.
I am so, particularly recently, and who knows how long it's going to take before even saying a platform, and then it's like, oh, no one uses that anymore. It's just the good and the bad of digital marketing is, I don't think I ever wanted to be anywhere where it was boring, and Lord knows it's like ever changing. I mean, I'm sure when I go back to my inbox today, there's going to be all kinds of, changes and updates and whatnot. Things are always, but I will say something that I have, really enjoyed recently is Reels.
Ooh.
Which essentially, let's just call it like it is. It's Instagram, Facebook's TikTok competitor. I'm not blind to the fact that Facebook copies without pride, or I don't know.
It doesn't feel as nice somehow.
Doesn't feel as nice, but yeah, Facebook tends to copy end of sentence. But nonetheless, I have really no pun intended, really liked Reels, because it can be short form, it's video, and it can be not only instructive, but very personable. And while this doesn't fall maybe necessarily underneath the umbrella of quote unquote loyalty program, I do think it falls into someone connecting themselves or with my brand, let's call it, with me, right? To say, even if this is a silly, goofy reel, I get it. It made me laugh. This is a human being. And I think a lot of creative business owners are actually a little hesitant. Actually, I know a lot are, because I talk with them. Hesitant about putting themselves out there because maybe, it's not going to be perfect. I always talk about, do not let perfection get in the way of production, right? And I think sometimes you got so many of them, you to get to better, you have to start sometimes bad.
You're preaching to the converted, Ross, because when I was launching the podcast from my side, absolutely somebody told me there's a very famous quote that unless you're embarrassed 12 months from now by what you're doing today, then you're actually not pushing hard enough. Just get over it. It's actually just never going to be perfect. So feel the fear, do it anyway. And I constantly cringe when I listen back. I don't know about you, but I still learn something. I still had a great conversation with that person, even though it could have been perfect, but I still love it, Ross. It's a great way, and people feel it. So I think we're doing good work.
Well, for better or worse, I also did college radio, and I still have some of those. I'll say tapes. They're not actually tapes. They've been digitized, but I have those recordings, and I recently had reason to go back and revisit some of those. And to your point about, unless you're going to be, cringe, and there's some of them a little, some of them a little, but to be fair, that was a lot more than 12 months ago. There you go. That was a lot of years. We're getting into many, 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 many years. And if that's the bar you're going to set, to never do anything because it might be a little embarrassing, oh my God, 20 years later, then I don't know how you're going to get out of that stasis. You need to, this is the thing I think and maybe you'll agree, I think in a lot of ways for loyalty programs to also be successful, they have to feel a connection to you more than just transactional.
You're absolutely right. The biggest topic we talk about, Ross, certainly on my podcast, is transactional loyalty is, yes, important. It satisfies the logical left side of our brain, but emotional loyalty is where the game changes. So that's absolutely what we're all out to achieve. And again, it can't be contrived. It actually does have to come from a place of the mindset that I mentioned at the very outset, the intention of loyalty to your customers. That's how you will create emotional loyalty. So there's absolutely no point going, you do this, you get that, who cares? Soon as a competitor comes along, you're out of the picture. So you actually have to give them a reason to go, you know what, Ross sent me that cookie. I like him. He's a good guy. I'm going to hang around.
So speaking of your podcast, where can people talk a little bit about your podcast? How can people find you online? Fire away.
Thank you, Ross. That's super nice of you. So it's called Let's Talk Loyalty. Super simple. I'm a big believer in simplicity. It's on everywhere that you can find podcasts, including my own website, which is letstalkloyalty.com. Also, people can find me on LinkedIn. So if you go and look Paula Thomas, Thomas, you'll definitely find me there as well. And please do listen and send me some emails. I'd love to talk loyalty.
Send her some cookies, maybe. I don't know. Actually, I may have spoke too soon. I don't know if she has a peanut allergy or anything like that. And just for everyone listening, yeah, it's like an approval list. Cookies, yes. Like there's nothing really not on my list. So
noted.
That's yeah. I'll take cookies, cheese plates, and alcohol. Breakfast, I'll take it all. For those of you listening, prepare all those things. Send them my way. Tripod Podcast. Go there for show notes and for anything else you want from this episode. And go check out Paula, her podcast, her website. And until I talk at you next time, I encourage you, keep pedaling.
Thanks for listening to Tripod. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. For show notes and past episodes, go to tripodpodcast.com. Connect with Tricycle Creative on social media at Hello Tricycle and learn more about how we can help you with your marketing at tricycle-creative.com.